placed the poor and vulnerable at the center of everything, right? Of religious life, of social life, and who was not afraid to go against the religious and cultural norms of his time to stand with those vulnerable and marginalized groups.
Welcome to Season 2 of Catholics in Ordinary Time. My name is Father Jack Bentz, and I continue to be your host for this exploration into Catholic culture. Our first season, as you recall, was all conversations with young adults, young adult Catholics, why they continue in their faith, why they don't. If you've not listened to that season, it's all available to you wherever you get your podcasts. And this season, the focus is a little bit more specific. It's with queer Catholic women who've decided to stay in the church. And this first episode is with Yunuen Trujillo, who is a very interesting person. She is an immigration lawyer and an immigrant herself, as well as an author. And she wrote a book on how parishes could do better with keeping space open for LGBTQ Catholics. And she also has had an experience of working with the LA Archdiocese as a minister to LGBTQ Catholics, especially those within the Spanish-speaking parts of the Archdiocese. It's a kind of a far-reaching conversation about a whole range of things. I found her great to talk to. She's insightful and incisive, and you can tell why she's an attorney. And also her story about how she continues to try to bring her full self to the church, but also to her work. Very, very interesting, and I found inspiring. And as always, if you enjoy this episode and this podcast, please share it with other people. Also take the time to give us a rating. Hopefully it's a good one. And also write a review. It really helps on all of the different platforms that carry Catholics in Ordinary Time. But for now, enjoy my interview with Yunuen Trujillo. Well, again, thank you, Yunuen, for being part of this podcast. Thank you for talking about not only your work with LGBTQ Catholics, but your own life experience, which is kind of more to the point of this particular podcast, because I know that you're an author and you're a speaker and you're an attorney, and all of those things. And you also work. Do you still work for the Archdiocese?
I do. I don't work for the Archdiocese, but I do. If they invite me to speak, once in a while, I'll.
Terrific.
So like I'm going to be participating at the religious education congresses, the regionals.
Well, with all those things, how are you right now?
I'm doing well. You mean politically?
No, just as a human being.
It's been very roller coastery lately. I've been dealing with a lot of, I don't know. It makes me think of Pope Francis's phrase, right? That the church is supposed to be a hospital, for those who are hurt. And lately I've been dealing with a lot of that hurt, in the LGBTQ community and the immigrant community. But other than that, I'm okay.
And you, how long have you lived in Los Angeles?
In the Los Angeles area since I was, since 2003, approximately. And I say the Los Angeles area because I've lived in the suburbs and moved around a little bit.
Yeah, I think that became clear to me. I'm originally from Oregon. And so, when people think about LA, they're actually just thinking about California. And then when they think about LA, it's all just one thing. And then when I worked and lived in LA, people were, understandably specific, like, you're not from LA.
Right. Yeah. So I specifically lived in the San Gabriel Valley for a long, long time. And now I'm a little bit east of that. So.
Yeah. And your family where's your family originally from?
From León, Guanajuato, Mexico, which is right in the middle of Mexico.
And did you come as a young person to the States?
Youngish. I was 16, I believe.
Okay.
So I was still a minor, not yet a young adult.
Yeah, and really kind of have your feet in both cultures, certainly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So born and raised in Mexico. So I have some friends who will say, "You're a true Mexican," right? I don't know what that means, but but also most of my adult life I've lived it in the U.S.
Yeah.
So I definitely, if you ask me where's home, I would say here is
Mm-hmm.
home. Even though my heart and a lot of my family is still in Mexico, and I love them very much.
Do you get back and forth very much?
No, no,
No.
I went back to Mexico uh, less than a year ago for the first time since I came in 2000, or since back, yeah,
Oh
since we moved
gosh.
here. So, and that's because of other issues, but yeah, not a lot.
Yeah. And what's your family background as far as practicing Catholicism, or feeling like inside the church, or were you with that kind of family, or culturally Catholic, or how would you describe your family?
Mhm. Culturally Catholic. So my extended family,
Hmm.
fully Catholic.
Hmm.
But my nuclear family, my dad was very Catholic. My mom identified as non-religious and
Hmm.
practiced and liked to learn from other religious traditions as well.
Hmm.
And so I would say for me, growing up, I grew up um, and culturally Catholic slash non-religious, because we didn't really. If I was with my grandma, if I was with my dad, my uncles, right, we would go to mass, we would do all the things. But with my mom, we didn't. And so I've mentioned this before. My grandmother was very, very Catholic, but her view of Catholicism was pre-Vatican II view, where the theology everything that she learned was based on this punishing God.
Hmm.
And my grandma, and I said my grandma, but in reality, she was my great grandma. She didn't know how to read and write. So everything
Hmm.
that she learned was based on what she heard from priests and others. And so her view of what it meant to be a Catholic, was one that my mom didn't like.
Hmm.
And so she decided to identify as non-religious. So I was kind of in between.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that, to me, that seems uh, consistent with who you are today, in the sense of here you're an attorney, you do a whole variety of things. I mean, that are very public facing, that's very self assured and confident. Not that traditional folks can't be that, but it sounds like, oh, I bet she had family members who were encouraging, or at least not limiting for what you could do in the world. Is that true?
That was definitely my mom. That sounds like my mom exactly. Yes, yes. She always encouraged us to learn new things, to not limit ourselves. And up until this day, she still does that. So I think it's been thanks to her. I have a very wide variety of experience in different things. And I've always said I don't believe I can be put in a box,
Hmm.
because I'm part of a lot of different intersectional realities, that are sometimes hard to explain depending on the context. I always, when I tell my story, sometimes I tell my immigrant story, sometimes I tell the LGBTQ story, and I'm sure there's other stories I could tell. And so part of that also has to do just with this, the fact that my mom didn't limit us and
Hmm.
encouraged us to learn a little bit of everything. Even when it comes to practicing law, I like to learn a little bit of everything. I specialize in one thing, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
just how I am.
And are you one of those lawyers that really likes law, or you see it as instrumental to be able to do other things?
I really like it,
Yeah.
but I also see it as a tool for justice. So
Hmm.
I used to be a faith-based community organizer.
Hmm.
And through community organizing, we achieved we had a lot of wins for the community.
Hmm.
But I realized that sometimes that community organizing is one toolbox to improve the lives of people, but um, the law is another toolbox. And so that's when I decided to go into law school. So I
Hmm.
see it as both something that I'm passionate about, but also as a great toolbox to have. in the fight for justice.
Yeah, and interesting. So you were doing the justice work within community organizing and thought, you know what, a law degree would help this, rather than the reverse of like you get a law degree and then you think, well, maybe I should go encounter the poor. So it was the reverse.
Yeah, it's just there's always a limit to how much you can do in community organizing. And there's always people who will tell you, you can't do that because that's against the law.
Oh, sure.
And my mom used to say that I'm very stubborn.
But you don't say that.
Not really. But that might actually be true, because if somebody tells me you can't do that, I need to know why, like what's the reasoning. I need to process it. I need to discern it. And then if I agree, right? But if I find counter argument, then I might say, let's think about this other side. So, yeah, I'm also really good at, as they say, at arguing either or, unless it's something that is completely wrong, right? And in that case, then I won't.
Yeah.
But, and that was my limit with even practicing law as well, right? Like I need to be in a field of law where I feel fully comfortable morally, in standing with my clients.
Sure. Yeah. And that's not all, you don't always have that liberty as an attorney, depending on the area you're in. Yeah. So backing up a little bit, you get to the States, you presumably finish high school. At that time, and then
learn English
and learn English at the same time. Yeah, that must have been its own experience. And then you go to school, you go to college, and then you start doing kind of community-based work, or kind of all along at the same time.
So it was all along. What ended up happening is I was able to again finish high school. I had a loved one who helped me learn English. And then, but after that, I realized I wasn't going to be able to just focus on school. Once I graduated, high school. So as part of an immigrant family, my sister and I had to work and go to school at the same time.
Sure.
So it took me a while. It took me a while. So I went straight to community college. I was still trying to, complete some of the basic, obviously still learning English and complete some of the basic courses.
Yeah.
It did take me a while. Eventually transferred to the 4-year university, which for me wasn't 4 years, but, and then and so during that time, I was also a youth leader, in a young adult, ministry in Spanish. And so during that time, we were having issues in our city, with undocumented people being targeted for, in DUI checkpoints, but they were not really about DUIs. They were about driver's licenses. And so, so we had a lot of our youth not coming to our meetings on Fridays. And one of my friends kept calling me and saying, like they impounded my car. Like, I don't know what to do. And so eventually we ended up, organizing this protest. It was not my intention to become a community organizer. It was out of the need of my community that we had to do something about, what was happening in the city, which was, some illegal actions disguised as legal. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And so, so that's when I became a faith-based community organizer. And it was at the same time that I was doing ministry and going to school. So all of the above. As I mentioned, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Apparently. Yes.
It's a lot going on at the same time. But you were standing in a faith community first. Yeah. Yeah. And
yes.
when you and your family arrived, was it pretty straightforward to find a faith community?
Yes and no. So my sister came to the US before I did, and she had obviously my mom was looking for community for her. I mentioned to you, my mom identified as non-religious, but once we came to the US with no community, I think for individuals like us growing up in a highly Catholic country, the first place that you turn to for community is a Catholic church. So they did go to church, and my mom did used to be part of a choir when we were little. And so she was looking for that space for my sister. We love singing, and So by the time I came to the US, we already knew of a parish where there was this young adult group. But like I said, we were not practicing Catholics. And it wasn't until I came out to my mom that she decided I needed to go to that retreat as well. So I always say, I was culturally Catholic, but as far as being practicing Catholic, I came to the church because I'm gay. And in spite of it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is so fun. Well, back me up to that moment. Was that when you were like 18-ish, that era, or
17-ish?
Okay,
I think.
So you'd been in the States about a year, and you came out to your mom, and she suggested a retreat.
Yes. So in high school, I met someone that I liked, and a girl, and the feelings were mutual. She's the one that helped me learn English.
Great.
Because she did not speak Spanish. So that's when I came out to my mom about a year later. I wanted to be able to just, have a lot of deep conversations with her and tell her who I am. But my mom wasn't ready to hear it, and she really didn't know what to do about it. And a lot of parents go through this, right? They have this struggle between wanting to be good parents and guide their children, but also not knowing, not understanding an LGBTQ identity enough. And so for her, the solution was, you have to go to this retreat. She will, if you were to talk to her, she will tell you she had this dream actually where, so she went to mass, and then, when she came out, somebody gave her a flyer for a retreat, and that somebody had one of those boxes where you put money, because she was collecting the deposit for the retreats. And so my mom went home, and she'll tell you that night she had a dream that an angel came to her with that box. And then she opened the box, and it had some, like syringes in there, like a vaccine. So she interpreted that as, this is the cure. And so I don't know if that dream was true or not.
Now, let me get this clear. She's the non-religious one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got it.
She's not religious, but she's always been very spiritual.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. So
you go to the retreat. Were there syringes involved?
Not absolutely not. No, I was actually surprised. Honestly, I expected a retreat similar to what my grandma would tell us about Catholicism. But it was a group led by immigrant youth, individuals who are very much connected with their vulnerability, with their marginalized status. And so I think their perspective of the gospel and Jesus was very accurate to what's in the gospel, right? So it was very close to the gospels, and they focused on Jesus and a God of love that loves us first of all. And so I was very surprised to find that, because my experience again and my view of the Catholic Church hadn't been that up until that point. And the community was great. I mean, they were very loving, very kind. And I needed community.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And the retreat was kind of a general retreat. It wasn't LGBTQ retreat or fixing LGBT. It wasn't syringes. It wasn't even trying to be.
No. It was a general initiation retreat.
Okay.
And it was actually a bit charismatic.
Sure.
As well. So I love music. And if you start, if we start dancing and doing activities with music, that's it. You got me. So they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And so then did you continue when you were working your way through college? Did you continue with that group or continue with a church defined group? I
continued with that group for a long time, until I was no longer allowed. And no, just kidding. But so in Pastoral Juvenil, which is young adult ministry in Spanish, there was this rule, at least in the LA Archdiocese, where you can only be anywhere from 18 to 35.
Correct. Yeah.
So the rule was, if you're over 35, you shouldn't be here. I actually left a little bit before that, but actually no, a lot before that. But But yeah, I was there at least for 11, 12 years
Okay, so
or longer.
that was your community. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I think does that kind of explain in part why, if just in the basic facts of like, here you are, a queer woman of faith that remains in the church, and in large part you remain in the church because of the community.
absolutely.
Okay.
I would say it was 60% loving community, 40% loving, well, no, maybe 50-50. So 50 the
Mhm.
community, 50 this new vision of who Jesus is,
What was that new vision?
and of the
Well,
Gospels.
and this is in contrast to the one of your great grandmothers. Yeah.
hmm So my great grandmother's vision again of this punishing God, this new vision was a vision of Jesus who uh, stood with the poor and vulnerable, who placed the poor and vulnerable at the center of everything, right? Of religious life, of social life, and who was not afraid to go against the religious and cultural norms of his time
Hmm.
to stand with those vulnerable and marginalized groups, whether it was women, whether it was um, individuals who were sick and who were believed to be right lippers, or who were believed to be uh, condemned in any way, whether spiritually or physically. Um, that new vision really, really got to me because I'm someone who, I, to me, living my faith has to be a faith in action. And if it doesn't include creating that community that is unconditional, uh, it doesn't feed me the way I need. And so, so when this new view was presented to me of a Jesus who died, more than dying for people's sins, that died for, or that was killed for standing with the poor and vulnerable, that I identified with. Absolutely. And
Ooh,
who put love at the center.
yeah. What was the moment where or the process or the person that kind of filled out this vision for you when you first thought, oh, that's a different kind of Jesus?
It was everybody. So
Okay.
that's just the way that the retreat was structured. So it was
Okay.
structured around this vision that Jesus died out of love.
Hmm.
Uh, and so it wasn't like you should feel guilty because Jesus died for your sins. It was more of Jesus died out of love, and he loves you so much.
Hmm.
He loves you so much that he wants to have this relationship with you, unconditionally. And so that to me was, that was it. That was it for me. And I'm always sentimental. So I mean, very emotional. So you'll see a side of me that I haven't shown before, but, yeah, so Jesus loves you. He died because he loves you and he wants to have this relationship with you, and it's unconditional.
Yeah. And
hmm
for you at that point, what were the parts that it was new for you to think that they're all could be loved?
Honestly, I think as an LGBTQ person, that was the part that I believe LGBTQ people can be loved.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I believe there's a lot of individuals who, and in the LGBTQ community, who feel that we are not loved in the Catholic Church. Whether it is because we heard someone saying that from the pulpit, or because we heard, I don't know, the USCCB say something, or because we heard a family member, right? So the truth is that most of us, our experience of Catholicism comes from our experience with a Catholic family member, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it comes to young adults. Young adults might not have read the Bible. And even if they have read it, right, maybe they haven't focused on the Gospels. They focused on, I don't know, the Old Testament. And so their view of Catholicism is going to be whatever a family member tells them is in the Bible,
Yeah.
or whatever a family member tells them the church is supposed to, is telling them to do. And so as far as LGBTQ, even though I hadn't been close to the church, I had heard that it wasn't allowed, that it wasn't accepted, and not just from the Catholic Church, but even coming to the US from other Christian denominations as well.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
And subsequently, your work with the Archdiocese, and then writing a book about how parishes could do LGBTQ community ministry better, or better ministry to those communities better. What do you think are the challenges in your experience for Hispanic folks that are LGBTQ Catholics? Like what? Because when you talk, it seems like your great grandmother has this great big power as far as communicating a particular kind of Catholicism, and probably within that, being a queer woman's not going to fly. Great. Yeah. So is that a common situation in Hispanic families, or what would you?
So here's the interesting part. I never heard that from my grandma.
Interesting. Yeah.
I picked that up from the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So again, Mexico is highly culturally Catholic, right? So even individuals who are not practicing Catholics, but it's also a very family oriented, sometimes conservative country, but in a good way, right?
Mm-hmm.
We value family. We value spending time with family over working overtime, right? And so we're very hardworking, but we also need that time with family. And so, so this I actually picked up from my culture. So it's a very machista culture, right? So it's very misogynist. It's anti-gay. It's up until this day, but not so much nowadays. But there's still this belief that males are above women, and that and this is very much based on gay men, right? That any man who wants to put themselves in the place of a woman, however you identify that or however you define that, is wrong. And so so I think most of that negative messaging I had heard was as to men.
Mm-hmm.
But and I grew up actually feeling very confident of who I was. But it wasn't until I came here and that I heard that, even in that retreat. So I'm telling you, it was very lovey-dovey, but we still had some guest speakers who did make it known, if you're LGBTQ, that's not okay. And so does that come from culture? Maybe it comes from culture. But I think it also came from a lack of understanding of doctrine. And so during the time after I lived the retreat, I decided to go back into the closet for about 10 years because I felt that this is not going to be a place for me if I'm openly queer. And so, so I went back into the closet and didn't date anyone for about 8 years. I had no problem with that. I've never had a problem staying single. But during that time, what I wanted was I need to figure out, what does the church actually say about this? Because a lot of people are telling me things, but what does the church actually say about this? And how much of that comes from culture versus the actual gospel versus the catechism? And what do other religious traditions say that? So I told you, if somebody tells me you can't do that, you can't do X, Y, and Z, I need to figure out why. And so during that time, I felt like I needed to discern my own answer. And I didn't feel, even in the most loving space that I found, I didn't feel it was a safe space to discern it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to, and so, and even as I do ministry now, that's one of the things that I advocate for. We need to create spaces of discernment. So when it comes to our personal vocation, we are told what our vocation is as LGBTQ Catholics, instead of being encouraged to discern like everybody else. And so, thanks to that process, that's when I learned a lot of things. And I also, in addition to going to school and everything else I was doing, I took religious formation, the basic and the advanced with the Archdiocese. And eventually I was in charge of religious formation programs, for young adult ministry in my deanery. And so that's when I met a group of parents who had a support group for parents with LGBTQ Catholic children in my deanery. And they were the ones that helped me figure out the doctrine, a lot of it. And they're the ones that, once I came out a second time, invited me to join in LGBTQ ministry.
I see. Yeah. So you eventually came out of the closet because you found a space to come out into.
Yes, and because I found my answer.
Mm-hmm.
So towards the last 2 years of that 10-year period, I dated this guy who I always say he was very cute, right? My aunts liked our pictures on Facebook, like. Our children were gonna be very cute. We were talking about getting married, and after, again, having this well-formed conscience and learning, I realized, if I marry you, like, I don't have that spouse-like connection with you. I love you like a brother, absolutely. But that's it. And so I realized that marrying him was also against church doctrine, right? Because the catechism talks about duplicity, not living a life of duplicity. So when I ended that relationship, I had to confront myself and say, okay, where do I stand now? Because I'm not going to marry a guy, but I'm also not called to be single and abstinent, even though I can be single with no problem. But I am called to share my life with a person for a lifetime. So it left me, I was left in a place where I believed that there wouldn't be a place for me in the church. And so that's when Martha and Javier Plasencia and other parents in that group told me, no, we're creating these spaces that are unconditional, and you should join us in the creation of these spaces that focus on pastoral care and for everyone. And so that's where, I won't lie to you, I did go through a difficult period where I didn't know if I wanted to continue in the church. But they're the ones that told me, please stay.
Yeah. What's your prayer life during that time and now? Like, what sustains you as, like, what's a day of prayer for you?
From then on?
From then on, how has it changed?
So my favorite form of prayer is through worship. So songs. And so for a long, long time, I was part of our choir for about 11 years, our young adult ministry choir. I learned to play the guitar, but that also meant obviously practicing a lot. And so I would pray through song. I also obviously, the regular night prayer, but worship and song was my favorite form. But eventually, once I came out, I was still in choir for a little bit, but eventually I felt like I had outgrown that space. And I did go through a period where I didn't really know what other practice to follow. And so then I became a lector and I started doing Lectio Divina. And so that was good. I don't know. Lectio Divina, what's the name for it in English? I don't know.
We call it Lectio Divina.
There you go. It sounds the same. Okay. So that's what I started doing for a while until the pandemic. So when the pandemic came, I went through another dark night of the soul, if you will, where I almost left the church.
Oh, tell me what happened.
So I started doing LGBTQ ministry around 2014. And because I already had some doors opened at the archdiocesan level, I was very lucky to be allowed into religious formation spaces here in the archdiocese, right?
As a queer woman.
As a queer woman, openly queer woman.
Got it.
Which is, I've lately been thinking a lot about this, that it's not common.
No.
So as an openly queer woman, and it was great. It's been great. But in 2020, or maybe a little bit before, I had a certain experience that was very, whenever I teach a workshop, there's always a little bit of opposition, right? I always say the great majority of individuals are somewhere in the middle, where they're trying to discern how to better serve the LGBTQ community, even if they don't agree with X, Y, and Z, but they're still trying to figure it out. And if someone's there, that's good, right? It's all about discernment. We don't have to agree with everything, but there's always this 1 to 3% of individuals who just oppose it. And around that time, I had a very negative experience with some individuals who, I don't know, it just made me very sad to see that in the church, we still have some opposition that comes from a place of what I believe to be hate, but it could also be hurt, because I've realized that some of the individuals who are most hateful, the truth is that they're not in touch with their own vulnerability. And so they can't stand to see the vulnerability in others. So I try to be compassionate on that end, but it got to a point where it just felt too toxic for me. And I almost left. Almost.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's also a very lonely ministry sometimes, Yeah.
Yeah. Are you with a team or folks that you consider your small squad, that where you have a good space for discernment still ongoing, and you can think about what's next together?
Now I do.
Yeah.
Now I do. But back in 2020, I didn't. So I was part of the archdiocesan ministry, the Catholic ministry with lesbian and gay persons, a beautiful ministry It is formed by parents and also by queer people. But I was doing ministry in Spanish and I was the only one doing it. Maybe that's why it felt lonely. Because everybody spoke English, and I was the only one doing it in Spanish. And so, even Jesus said you should go in pairs. and yeah, so I didn't have that extra support.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you show up for your parish these days? Just a pew potato, you're just there, or involved, or one of the old timers in the back saying, I've done it all.
Right now, a pew potato, but that's because I actually moved to a different area, so I haven't found a new home parish.
Okay.
But I might go back to my old areas soon, and so I might become a lector again, or because I really enjoy doing that. And so
I try to figure that out.
Yeah. So still trying to figure out.
Now, I know you wrote an entire book on it, but do you see parishes getting better at this opening space, or maybe you don't? You're not in enough parishes to really get a grip on it, where it's easier to be an LGBTQ Catholic, or it really depends?
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends, but it depends a lot on the pastor. But I do want to make a distinction between the community, the people on the ground, and the official feel of the parish, right? So the official feel of the parish would be based on the pastor.
Yeah.
Whatever is said from the pulpit. If you hear a pastor who's not saying something very LGBTQ friendly, then you won't feel very welcome. And I've had some of those recently too. But as I'm looking for a new home parish. But when it comes to the people on the ground, again, I think the great majority of individuals are in that discernment phase and that in between. A lot of our people on our pews, so catechists, they have LGBTQ loved ones, grandchild, child. And so I think the great majority of parishioners are somewhere in between, but they're not being given the right tools or the right information to be a little bit more welcoming sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's some parishes that are extremely welcoming in the LA area. They tend to be near the beach, or they tend to be in other wealthy areas. I don't know why. I don't know why. But it seems to me that ministries in more wealthy areas thrive more than other ministries. And that's just my observation. There's no study that says this is actually true. But there's some very, very inclusive and welcoming parishes that I wish all of them were like that.
Is there one that comes to mind in the LA area that's really great for that has like a good safe space for Hispanic members of the LGBTQ communities?
There's one, but it's not really in the LA area. It's what we call the Inland Empire. And it's the first ministry that I find that is more Latino oriented, and specifically Latino women, which is very unusual. We used to have a ministry like that also at my home parish, but it died down once the pastor moved to a different parish because the environment kind of changed. But there's a very successful one in this area as well. But it's 1 out of 12, 13.
Yeah.
That we have in the archdiocese.
No, that's good. So what's next for you?
I do not know. I've been called to be a little bit more focusing a little bit more on social media. I haven't really done that. I've always been the kind of person who I focused on religious formation. So I focused on doing the work locally. And I do have the LGBTQ Catholics Instagram to kind of do a little bit of outreach or show individuals that there are some inclusive, affirming LGBTQ ministry efforts happening in the country. But I've never, sometimes I've had a little bit of and maybe this is just a self-confidence thing where I don't want to make it about me. But lately I've been feeling like I need to start not only making it about me, but more sharing my story a little bit more on social media, but also maybe sharing a little bit of that religious formation knowledge in the social media environment, which I haven't done before because I was always concerned that if I said anything that pushed the boundaries too much, that the local doors that were open to me would be closed. So that was always my concern. But lately, I'm feeling a little bit more free to do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's next.
Oh, good for you. That's not easy. What you've just described is not easy. And I think the balance between, making it, having to be the spokesperson and also not have it be about you. That's just constant discernment. That's constant discernment. And gosh, we have all kinds of opportunity to see people that get it wrong, get it right, get it wrong, get it right. Because it's hard. It's a line. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. I just need to sit down and say, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. But I have been feeling called to go in that direction, because I know whatever's happening in LA, whatever's happening in Atlanta, where they also have an archdiocesan ministry, or in San Bernardino, that is not happening in other areas. And so I think social media is a great tool.
Yeah. Tell me about your book and how it's going. And is there another one coming out?
It's going great. So it came out in 2022, and it is a very basic guide. If you see it, it's a small, but it was intended to be that way, right? It was intended to be a book that can be read and understood by anybody. And that is a simple guide to how to do this ministry work. And it's going great. I think this year, we just came out with the Spanish version of it. Was it this year? I think so, 2025. And I was very happy because, Paulus Press doesn't usually publish in Spanish. And so I was very happy that we got that done. But yeah, it's going great.
And is that, it's affordable enough that parishes could buy bulk and read through it and use it and make it available?
Yeah, and I know that some groups, I can't remember right now, but there's been some of that individuals who approach me and say, yeah, I got a book through I can't remember, Declarations. I think they bought a whole bunch of them and distributed them to some of their priests. So yeah, it's affordable enough, and I think it's a good tool. It might not have all the answers, and that's something that I always tell people. Nobody has all the answers. The entire church is still discerning this topic, but here are some answers and some helpful tips.
Yeah. And do you think you might be writing another book in the future? Or?
I wanted to write one on intersectionality. I actually gave a talk about intersectionality last year at the Los Angeles Religious Education Congress. I just haven't followed up with the publisher, but I might do that. I think it would be a good book given the political environment that we're living in today. And so, but we'll see. We'll see if it happens.
And for you, the intersectionality is immigrant and LGBTQ, Catholic, at least those three things going on at the same time, or
a woman.
Okay, yeah.
Those would be the main groups that I belong to, and I think each one of them brings a different perspective to not just to the work that I do, but to how I understand the world. And I think most people are more intersectional than they believe. I don't think we're trained to think intersectionally about ourselves. Even when we talk about the fight for justice, we talk about privileged versus vulnerable. And the truth is that we all have some level of privilege. We all have some level of vulnerability. And so that's kind of what I want to cover in the book, to say, you need to be able to connect with your vulnerability, because if you don't, then you're going to despise others who do. And at the same time, you have to be able to stand in whatever power you have as a vulnerable person to stand up for yourself as well and for others.
That's so smart. I think that's exactly right. And I think you should write that book, because the being able to understand because I remember way back watching Kimberly Crenshaw's talk on intersectionality, and which I enjoyed a great deal. And I thought, oh yeah, that's it. And then quickly you would hear kind of the chatter of really dismissing intersectionality as just another delusion from the left, and rather than like, well, actually, everyone's intersectional, so let's get on with it. And I really like your ability to use, and these are my words, but you're using the word vulnerable and vulnerabilities rather than poverty or the poor, right? Because people are poor because they're vulnerable or they're vulnerable. And so that's the way we connect with them as we could connect with ourselves. That was great. I think you should write a book.
Yeah. Thank you. No, and there's, there's other vulnerabilities in addition to poverty.
Sure.
I think, I don't know, like, I'll be honest with you, even in LGBTQ ministry, sometimes we have individuals who, white men, right, which are in theory part of the privileged group, but being queer, that's an extra vulnerability, right? And so I think if we can all connect with our vulnerabilities, we can be more hospitable to the wound of others, and we can be better Catholics and better Christians and better followers of Christ. I don't think we can do that without connecting with our vulnerability. And when we focus on practicing or believing in theologies that focus on repressing your hurt and repressing whatever you think is not great about you, it does the opposite. Yeah. And so I think it can be spiritually unhealthy.
Yeah. I think almost everyone, if they pause for a moment, would be able to have had identified those experiences in their own lives, where they've done that for themselves and to other people. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's
right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Were there other areas or things that you wanted to talk about, or different pieces?
No, I guess the only thing that I wanted to say in terms of why I stay in the church is that I've seen that the church can be a tremendous force for good. And I believe in that ability, or I believe that we need to harness that power for good. And so I've seen it. I've been part of loving communities, and I would just encourage everyone to, to focus on that love for each other and to be able to be a force of good in the world.
Yeah, because it's certainly possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. It's wonderful to hear parts of your story and to be with you on a Friday morning.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.